Hey YouTube, today we're going to take a few minutes to talk about how to properly hold the guitar. Now, again, this course is primarily oriented around electric guitars. There is some overlap, plenty overlap with acoustics, but we're just focusing on electric guitars. And so the first thing you're going to want to do, now we're going to start out by talking about how to hold it with a strap. Okay, and the strap again is basically a belt that goes onto the buttons here and here. The buttons might be in different locations depending on the exact kind of guitar you're using. As I go through this series with you, I'm going to highlight different entry-level guitars. And so before we looked at the Squier Telecaster, that was an Affinity Telecaster. This here is a Epiphone Les Paul 100, another good quality entry-level guitar. Looks very nice. And I also dedicated a video to lowering the strings and leveling the frets to achieve a lower action. So if you're interested in doing that on your guitar, check out that video as well. So today we're just again going to spend just a few minutes looking at how to hold the guitar. Now, I've said this before and I'll probably say it again, everybody is different. Every guitarist is unique. I'm unique, you're unique, everybody is different. Okay, so what this is I am showing you what I do and the reasons why I do it, and it'll ultimately be up to you to decide exactly how you want to hold it. But this is simply my advice to you. Now, classical guitar, and this transfers over into flamenco and Spanish guitar, but classical guitar typically would be in a seated position with no strap, and the guitar is kind of sitting on their lap, either with legs crossed or with one leg up on a little stool, and the guitar is held very high, close to the body. Now typically classical guitars will only go up to about the 14th fret. They're not usually almost 2 octaves or a full 2 octaves as some 24th fret electrics are, but they sit very high, very close to the chest right here. Okay, this is the classical style. And it's typically finger picked, very, very close to the chest, very, very high. Now, what I adopt is a kind of modified classical, in that I'm still maintaining closeness to my body and a very similar angle, approximately 45 degrees, kind of a nice triangular angle there, but rather high. And this is why. This is why I hold it this way, and this is why classical guitar developed the way that it did, is that you see my wrist is straight. Now look, I can move all the way up. Now my wrist turns a little bit, but it is still straight. Okay, and that's the really important thing, because guitar, if you want to do this for the long term, you're going to need to create sustainable practice, right? The way that you play is going to develop into muscle memory. If you learn one way, it's going to be difficult to shift to another way. So at the beginning stages, it's very important to be aware of how you're playing, how you're practicing, and so forth. And so I find that basically this position, where the guitar is reasonably, you can see here across my chest, right? It's loose, it's not really high as with the classical position. It's a little bit lower, but it's comfortable, flat on my body, and the key again is that I can move my hand all the way up here, and all the way up here it just starts to turn a little bit. Now, the difference being that you will see people, and this is primarily a matter of how long you make your strap, right? Straps are going to be adjustable belts, basically, how long you make it. And so I'm going to show you in just a second what it looks like if you're like really, really long on the strap and you're doing the heavy rocker thing. So what I've done here is lowered the strap considerably, so it's sitting down here rather than up here on my chest. It's more down here at my belt line. And sometimes you see people go even further down. Now, you notice my wrist is starting to angle. And the more that I tilt this down, especially if I'm way down here, look what my wrist is having to do. Now I'm at just about a 90-degree angle in order to play it. It's already starting to hurt the tendons in my arm. You might be a real young fella and your tendons aren't hurting yet, but let me tell you, doing this is not a sustainable practice. You see the rock guys, I don't know how they do it. I guess they just take enough painkillers to deal with it. I can't do this. This hurts. So that's the reason why I play closer to the classical position, right? Closer to the chest, the 45-degree angle. My wrist can still feel from that really awkward bend that I was doing, especially to try to get up to, it's just not happy, not happy. So let my middle-aged voice warn you, you want to establish sustainable lifelong practices early on, or else imagine, let's say you start out as a teenager, you're playing like, oh, I'm heavy rock, I'm way down here, I'm thrashing my head around, okay, that's fine. But what happens in 20 years? And now, oh, your wrist is not going to bend like that. Does that mean now you basically have to relearn guitar? Because you're changing your position, especially a radical change, is going to cause you to have to relearn a lot in terms of your muscle memory and the way that your hand grabs the guitar, the way that it plays notes. Even the muscles that you develop and how they develop are all going to be determined by the way that you play the guitar. So everybody's different, and if you want to hang it low and I mean whatever, do your thing, man. But what I do is close to the body, cross here at an angle coming basically with my shoulder, and this is sustainable, and this I can play for hours and hours and my hands don't hurt, my wrists don't hurt, and you can see just it's very natural the way that my hand is reaching around, the way that it wants to go up the fretboard and so forth. So now the next thing is to talk about playing without a strap. Now generally speaking, if you're standing up, you're going to need a strap because you've got to have some way to hold it to your body, unless you just, really, I can't do that. So I need a strap if I'm standing up, and mostly I play and I practice with a strap. Now, you can play sitting down, and as I mentioned, the traditional classical position is sitting down with the guitar resting in your lap, across your body like this, and then you're either got your legs crossed or you have something to put one of your feet up on. Right, so you can get a sustainable, comfortable position like that. Now that's the classical position. Most of us aren't going to play like that. When you pick up a guitar and you don't have a strap, what I tend to do is rest the bottom on my leg, depending on where it's plugged in at, and just kind of nice in my lap there, and I'll play like this. Now you can, if you just pick up and you're just, noodling on it real quick, you can put it all the way down so that the curvature of the body goes onto your thigh like that, and this is okay, but you have to do a lot of bending forward to achieve a comfortable wrist position here. You can do this, but you have to come very far forward, and if you're singing at all, this is not a position that you can be in, because my lungs are collapsing by doing that. So I can get up here comfortably, I can play like this, but this is not, generally speaking, my preferred position, and most people are going to favor a strap. So that's the basic ins and outs of holding it in terms of up to your body. The next thing, and we're going to talk about this more, we've already mentioned the body position is going to determine your wrist angle. So we're going to get further in the next lessons on achieving good notes and so forth, about how to actually get those notes. The next thing to note here is how I'm holding it, and that is with my thumb on the back, not wrapped all the way around. Now some people, really excellent guitarists tend to be able to pull their thumb around and actually fret with their thumb. I can do that, but only very, very limited. I can't make a proper shape and get that and get a sustainable tone, so I just don't worry about it. If you can do it, that's awesome and amazing. You don't have to do it in order to be a good player. It's just, whether you're able to get your thumb up there. My thumb is not all that long, and so I just really don't have that reach capability to get around there. But generally speaking, what you're going to want is your thumb on the back like this, just lightly pressed against it, and it's going to move. This needs to just be able to slide, but what you're doing is just giving some back pressure so that you can press with enough force onto the fretboard. And so once you have that, you're pinching it back here with your thumb. Then it's a matter of, it's kind of like spider legs. I tell young folks it's like spider legs. We will talk at the very end of the intro, the 101 course, we'll talk about bars where you're flat against there. We'll talk about bars later, but for right now, you want to work on being able to get your fingers like spider legs, where you're just touching with the tip. The reason being, you need to be able to strike a note and not hit the strings next to it. So again, you're going to want to arch your fingers, press, and that's how you're going to, now we'll get more into this later, but that's the basic how your fretting hand. Now your fretting hand is going to be determined if you're right or left-handed, and whether you're playing on a right or left-handed guitar. But the fretting hand would be that, you know, for a right-hand person that's your left hand, or vice versa. The fretting hand is going to be like a spider, where you are, you're pressing back for pressure, and then you're pressing down onto the frets. And we'll talk about that more, but that's the basic way that you're going to hold the guitar.